Sweet.
You, folks.
Nice one. Guys, quickly, so I'm Ken, this is Dave. Dave's the clever one, I'm not. This is some stuff, you probably saw bits of this in the press in the past. We've got some new stuff to tell you today. We've never disclosed the actual disarm codes for the alarm, so you get that fresh today, that's new. And there's also some stuff that happened at the weekend on Wiggle, which I thought was fascinating. So this is kind of the most detailed talk we've done. We've kind of skipped over the detail for fear of teaching people to steal cars, but we're going to tell you everything today, so feel free. And my car is actually out front. It's parked there. If anyone wants to after this, we can go and do some live demos. We've got it all video for today, but it's there. The Wi-Fi's enabled. I'll give you the Wi-Fi key, and you can have a play if you want, and turn the lights on, steal my car. Great. So that's actually my car. That's my Mitsubishi Outlander. You can see I did this talk in DEF CON because I'm using US terminology. It's a four-wheel drive, and it's got batteries and petrol, and it's okay. They claim 32 miles range on Lecky. They mean 18, I reckon. I've never got more than about 20. It's all right though, because you don't have the whole range anxiety thing you do with a pure electric car, because you can just drive it for miles on petrol if you want. Fuel economy is horrific. That 156 mpg they quote on the adverts, I do not know where they got that from. Mine does about 30 miles per gallon on petrol, because it's lugging around loads of batteries. I've got a Tesla on order. Can't wait. That's a proper car. Background, we got into car hacking a few years ago. Buddy of mine bought an i3, got it really early doors. He got an i8 as well. We had a bit of a play around with that and found a bunch of bugs in the way they do the connected drive implementation for the i-series vehicles. There's an extension to the app called iRemote, and it's nuts. You can force a password reset. It gives you a temporary password, which is 5 lowercase alpha, and you can brute it. And then once you've got the username and password, you can provision another mobile app, geolocate the car, and unlock it. It's just nuts. And disclosure with that didn't go very well. That's another story. Don't seem to have much luck with disclosure and car manufacturers, but there you go. So anyway, the Mitsubishi Outlander. It comes with a mobile app. I've got it here. It's not currently connected to my car because the Wi-Fi range is shocking. That's it. What's really weird about this? Anyone here got a mobile app for their car? Yeah, most of them use web services, APIs, GSM, mobile data, yeah? Right. This is really odd. It connects directly to the vehicle over Wi-Fi. So you've got to be in physical range. So one of the functions, of course, is finding your car in a car park, which is a bit stupid because you've got to be within Wi-Fi range, so 30-odd meters. It just makes no sense. The main function of the mobile app was two big things, and chap here who's got one clearly knows about this. It helps you set up a charging profile. So if you want to charge up your car on a Lecky, then you want to do it overnight on Economy 7 when it's cheap as chips. So it can let you set up a charging profile from your house. If it's cold in the morning, obviously you can set the preheater and you can get it going. It's nice and toasty warm. Great, fantastic. But just really weird. They've done it over Wi-Fi, which is massively limiting. The range on the Wi-Fi access point is shocking.
About 5 meters.
I mean, yeah, I can't even see. The car's just out there and I can't see it over Wi-Fi right now, which makes no sense. And it does a bunch of other stuff. So you can set some preheat, pre-cool, turn the AC on a hot day, that sort of stuff. Great. This is very different to Volkswagen and Audi. Some of the high-end Audis have got a Wi-Fi access point for internet access, which I still don't really understand because surely you just tether off your own phone or use mobile data. I don't know, it makes no sense to me, it's stupid. But the MMI systems, you often see Audi, MMI as an SSID if you're out traveling. They're worth having a look at on Wiggle as well. So this is the stupid thing. Obviously, to do Wi-Fi, you've got to set up encryption, and they give you SSID and PSK printed on a piece of paper in the manual. And this is really nuts, is you can't change the PSK. It's factory set, you cannot modify it. But you can change the SSID. Which muppet thought of that? I'll tell you, well, let them change the bit that doesn't matter and not let them change the bit that's really important. Nuts. So, got that, had a bit of a look, and there's massive issues here. So, the first issue is the SSID. Okay, so it's a very predictable format. We'll come back to that later. The PSK is static and short and really, really, really easy to crack. So, it's 4 lowercase alpha. But the char set's only 21 characters, not full 26, and then it's 6 numbers. And we put that on 4 970s, and it cracked it in 2.5 days. Now, yeah, whatever. It took a bit of a while. But of course, you're cracking it offline. So you can go out, capture the handshake, and then crack it and come back, and you've got the car. If you want to do it quickly, I suppose you can put it in somewhere in the cloud, AWS or something like that. We priced it up at about $1,000 to crack on the fly using AWS, but, that's a lot of money. People say, yeah, 1,000 A lot of money. 40,000 quid car? Don't know. I think I might make that investment. I don't know. So hooked up to the connection, had a bit of a look at it, and saw this. This was actually in the car park at my kid's school. That's actually my mate's Outlander, hence the different SSID. And just saw what pretty obviously a binary protocol. So looking interesting. We managed to fingerprint the Wi-Fi modules of Gainspan. That's always good fun, by far the most popular. Great stuff. Gives you DHCP, gives you an access point, gives you a static address. Port 80 is open, but there's not really much going on there we could find. But port 8080 was much more interesting, wasn't it? Yep. So obviously we middled it there and had a bit of fun. Dave, this is the bit where he is...
I'm doing this unrehearsed and on the fly.
Yeah, there you go,
no
Dave.
Slides, so this may cock up.
So obviously
so I'm not actually going to show any real demos here. So I'm just going to sort of go along the process to do. So normally, if you're trying to do Internet of Things, a pack-in, you'd stick something like host APD, make a fake Wi-Fi, sniff it. Can't do this, the AP's on the actual car. So I spent ages mucking around with trying to decode the actual WPA sniff from a Wireshark. Then I just thought, hold on, I'm on an Android phone, it's rooted, I can just run Wireshark on. It's a program called Interceptor NG, basically Wireshark for Android, it's great. So doing that, here we have basically the actual conversation. It's a bit dull really. You can see some strings in here. Like there's the AP name there, and there's what looks like an address there, and there's a VIN there. But when you do a hexam, you can actually start to see some patterns. So I assume people here have done bits in reverse engineering. Because you can start seeing some effects here. So here we have, for example, the byte F2, and then the response to that is 2F. Sort of a bit pattern. We've got it again, F6, 6F. And if you notice, there's, where am I going? There are actual length bytes here, so the byte after that is the actual length of the packet. So we can start adding all these things together. And you can start seeing in a few ones, you're getting these F9 packets, sorry, the F6 packets, and there's always some data following it. So in this case, we can see the SIDs, and we can all add this together. And actually add them, and what it does is basically it will connect to your car, dump all the variables from the car, and actually extract them and put them in a binary file, which is stored somewhere on your Android device. Where do you put those files?
Which ones do you want?
The files.
Do they mean? Oh, it's in here. It's on the desktop. Yeah. Oh no.
Oh no, it's on the Windows.
It's on the Windows box, isn't it?
Ah.
There you go. Is it? I don't know. Let's have a look. We practiced this, can you tell?
You can tell this is well rehearsed and practiced.
I haven't got it on there.
Okay, we extracted the files off Android and basically just dumped them all into a huge massive file, which we can then basically look through and get the information from. So a bit of reverse engineering showed us there's some important packet structure. So where's your next slide?
There you go.
Yep. So here we have the basic packet structure. So we have F6, which is a common one for issuing a command, length of packet, the command 0 is saying I'm issuing a command, 1 is saying I'm doing acknowledgement, a command, 1 or more bytes of parameters, and then a checksum, which is basically everything added up, mod 256. Very simple one. So lights on, for example, is a command of 10, parameter of 1. But there's a special one which is setting, which is a command of type 15, and that basically takes a setting ID and a value to set to the car. So that one we'll discuss later. That specific one, 17, is an important one that we'll talk about later.
Cool, that's where the fun starts. Yeah. So this is the first place we got to. This was fairly straightforward, and you can see this live if we go out to the car a bit later. But there you go, and lights come on. Great, fantastic. That was easy. We managed to figure out that quite early on. The next bit was the hard bit that took a bit more time. So it's very easy to turn the lights on. You can do this in flight. You can drive up behind other cars and turn the lights on for them if you want. That's quite good fun. Is there really a security consequence? No. Drains the battery a little bit. They turn themselves off again after 15 seconds, so it's no great shakes. The other thing you can do, because you can set up a charging profile, the other thing you can do is you can you can actually then, to a vehicle, go to it and say, right, preheat or pre-cool, which is quite good fun if the car's out there on a sunny day. You can actually really roast the hell out of it, or you can cool it down in winter, so it's really annoying. The other problem, of course, you can keep it discharging all the time, so you turn up to your electric car and there's no battery power left, which is a little bit annoying in the morning, I have to say. So again, not really a massive significance. It's just, you just drive it on petrol. It just doesn't matter that much. However, I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with me in this video. We then went a whole load further and figured out probably the most significant point about this, which is managed to figure out how to turn the alarm off. Dave?
And that's pretty much that string that I showed you earlier.
Okay, so what we've done here is just to wind the window down so you don't have to smash it. You're probably just about here down here, so it's going off, right? Move on one, and then if you send it that, which we've never disclosed before, you then disable the alarm, and you can then stick your hand in merrily, and it's all off, it's not working. And because you've got access to interior, you can also flip the door handle when you're in. So at that point, things are getting a bit serious. And that's where we decided to try and disclose to Mitsubishi. They've still got a bit of a to-do on there. Once you've got access to the interior of the vehicle, you've got access to diagnostics ports. So then you can code a key. Hey, that's the fun, got the car. You can either smash the window, which I haven't done because it's a bit expensive to keep replacing it, or you can actually pry the door frame open slightly as well. And if you've ever locked your keys in your car, I don't know who's done that. Who would have done that, Dave? You can also get a feeler like the AA and RAC do. They can actually flip the door handle from inside, which is all right. It's a bit of fun. Yeah, we've actually scripted this up. Dave, do you want to run through our nice, lovely little script? So we've published this. If you want it, should we stick it on the GitHub at some point?
Yeah, I'll stick that on the GitHub. So yeah, I'm lazy. I don't like repeating binary commands. I messed around for ages using different replayers, and then I thought, sod it, Python. It's not really that exciting. It basically takes a socket and then just basically takes it down to lights on, lights off, alarm on, alarm off.
Yep.
I'll admit, when we initially did this, Ken wanted me to not touch the app because he wanted to make sure if we went to the States, we wouldn't fall foul of the DMCA or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in the app.
So,
so eventually, after hacking around for ages, I just went to the app, and here is the decompiled app. It's not even obfuscated, and you'll find in we want basically CMD make. And here we have in a class called def message are all the basic little messages that can be passed. Not all of those are valid instruction strings, and we haven't fuzzed it because if I break his car, I'm sacked.
Well, there is another issue as well. Is the Wi-Fi connection is really, really flaky. Only accept one request every 15 seconds or so. Yeah. So you try and fuzz it, it's just disastrous. It just falls over. It's just not good. So everything you need to do is in there. Brilliant, eh? Makes life so easy, which is just bonkers. Yeah, everything you want to do, all the commands are in there. Right, so fixing it. So it's actually incredibly easy to resolve this bug. You can actually tell the Wi-Fi access point on the vehicle to switch itself off. The way you do that is trivial. You just go to the mobile app. This is why we disclose you can go to the mobile app, and in the functions of the mobile app is cancel VIN registration. That's the pairing process that connects the phone to the car. And if you unpair all the phones from the vehicle, the access point goes to sleep. You can only re-wake it by then pressing the remote control key 10 times, and that then puts the access point into a pairing mode again. So it's really easy to fix. We published that and said that we fix it with 10 presses. Mitsubishi then published a solution that involved pressing the remote 30 times. Okay, fair enough. The dealers apparently use that process when you sold a car to a dealer and they're reselling it. They go through this 30 key press thing and it resets the car back to factory, which is cool. It's fine. The big consequence to this for me, though, is it's a Wi-Fi device. Most Wi-Fi devices, sit on your shelf and they're routers. This one's got four-wheel drive. And you can use Wiggle, because the SSID format, to find them. And there they are. We found about 6,000 hits on Wiggle for the SSID format, remotes, whatever. Some of those are on the road. Most of them are parked at people's houses. And that's what I kind of like about this, is you can actually use Wiggle to find a car to target. You can then go and find it, parked at the owner's house, capture the handshake, crack the key, and pinch the car, which is a bit crazy, right? Now, we did a pre and post, so that's the 3-week window on Wiggle for before disclosure, and that was 3-week window after disclosure. So clearly a lot of people have turned them off when it got 400 hits compared to 6,000, but still 400 Outlanders out there that we could see in a 3-week window that had Wi-Fi enabled, which is crazy. I mean, you've got to be pretty nuts to leave Wi-Fi on your vehicle that allows it to be pinched. But there's a massive thing happened on Saturday. Mitsubishi approached Wiggle.net, the war driving guys, and asked them to suppress all the SSIDs of Outlanders. Oh, wow. And I thought it was, we were trying to think, is there actually a legitimate reason for these Outlanders, Wiggle to actually support that? I couldn't see why they should. I just thought it was an interesting angle. Mitsubishi going to an independent third party and saying, can you not disclose these? And I suppose actually, yeah, it's a ticket to go and hack a vehicle, so why not? I think we should talk about some longer term fixes though. Obviously being a Wi-Fi module, it does support a firmware update. The problem is the update process comes from the mobile app, and they're expecting the consumer to stand by their vehicle and push a firmware update to the Wi-Fi module over Wi-Fi. What? And this Wi-Fi connection is flaky as. So the opportunity to brick it is quite significant. We haven't finished looking through the binaries. There's very little debug information in there actually.
There's no debug information.
Yeah.
So basically the binary downloads the Gainspan module, which runs a couple of web servers. So it's actually embedded in the APK of the Android app, so you need to update the Android app to update it.
I think it's also worth talking about disclosure as well. This is a bit of a train wreck really. So we rang Mitsubishi and had a conversation with them, and they said, okay, can you send us some details of this? I said, yeah, of course we can. So we sent them everything we had. So here's what the problem is, here's how we think you could fix it, here's what we think you should do. And they said, yeah, great, okay. And then they didn't respond to us, so we gave them another call 10 days later and said, what are you going to do, guys? And I kid you not, the guy said to me, we've had no reports of this in the field from anywhere in the world. We don't consider it to be an issue. We're not going to fix it. What? At which point I was utterly stumped. I didn't know what to say. So over a course of a 5-minute conversation, I said, well, I've got no other choice because it's my vehicle and lots of other vehicles. Someone else will work this out. This isn't complicated. We're going to have to tell the press. And he said, that's fine. Speak to the press. We'll say the same to you as we will to them. Wow. Okay. So I picked up the phone and called a couple of journalists and said, look, Mitsubishi aren't taking this seriously. What do we do? They're not going to fix it. So the BBC became involved, and now Mitsubishi think it's a very serious problem. They're going to fixing it right now. What? It really? In fairness, I think the disclosure, subsequent, I think it came to them on the same day as they were going through their emissions scandal. I think they had a bit of a bad day, but that's still no excuse not to listen to a researcher and, who's got valid concerns. I mean, what should have happened, obviously, is we did the disclosure, and you'd expect them to say, yeah, great, very much like GM did with the Jeep hack. Yeah, got that, validated it. It's going to take 6 months to fix it. It's fine, okay, we'll keep quiet until then. But they didn't. They told us they weren't going to do anything. Yeah, right, okay, brilliant. There's still quite a bit of work we want to do on this. It is my daily drive, so it kind of needs to work. So we've actually found the module, and in fairness, Mitsubishi have been quite good since then. We went down to see them in Cirencester, where there's just a sea of these Outlander hybrids with the Wi-Fi still running. Oh, what? Okay. And we spent some time. They got a car that had just been shipped in from Japan. Said, look, can you validate it on latest software, latest version? It all worked, so it's all fine. So they know it's a serious bug. They also showed us in the end where the Wi-Fi module was located. It's behind a panel. It's a Costal body network control model, clear tier 1. The next place we want to go is unmount that. But annoyingly, it's stuck behind the entire boot liner. It's going to be quite a job to get it out. So work on that, get it out, scrape the firmware, see what else it's doing, see how it interfaces with a CAN, see what other stuff it does. Something we're looking at the moment is there is functionality within the mobile app to pop the door locks, but we can't get it to work, and we're not really sure why. We sit there banging our head against the dashboard.
I spent a day fuzzing that with no success.
Yeah, and just to make things easy, rather than store your SSID and PSK in the mobile app securely, they roll their own storage in unencrypted SQLite database. Get in. Don't you love it? There's also some other functions we've been investigating. That's one, change gun status. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to do, but we're kind of working it. I think actually that means charge gun status, so is it plugged in at the wall? But yeah, maybe that's a special export version we don't know about. Hey, bit of fun. So that kind of wraps up the car hacking stuff. I just cannot get over how unbelievably straightforward this was. I mean, it was a couple of days of hitting our heads against wheels, but we got there in the end. I just can't get over how simple this was. This is a vehicle, and we've exposed it to theft. It doesn't get much worse than that, does it? I really want to see if we can connect to the Wi-Fi modules and and do more stuff while the car's moving. Obviously a bit more risky, a bit more Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek. That'd be quite cool. But I guess Mitsubishi will get it sorted soon enough. They did promise us a resolution. They said they're going to give us a shout once they fixed the bug was and get us to have a quick look at the code, but they still done nothing about it that I'm aware of. So instead they call Wiggle, God knows. We're going to do, because we've got some more time, we've got, what, crikey, half an hour. We're going to move on to do some stuff on IoT malware in a minute, if that's okay. Anyone got any questions on the car stuff? Yes, the owner of an Outlander.
Unfortunately, my LG phone decided that it was going to give up. So it can't factory reset, so I couldn't start one. Now I need to go to the car to pay this. So is this the key factory?
Yeah, if you press, so the sequence you go through is you press lock and unlock 15 times in sequence. 1, 2, 1, 2, yeah, it's really irritating. And the car will then beep at you, I think, twice, and that forces the Wi-Fi module to unpair and power itself down. So it's actually fixed at that point.
It does beep an awful lot.
Sorry, if I managed to get 50% of the way of what you've done, I've actually been able to insert traffic and get to the packing couches, but I hadn't actually had the time to actually go any further to actually work out what was what. And then if I'd probably gone and decompiled the APK, I might have got a little bit further still, but I just not had the time to do it. But it's good to know that I wasn't just the only one that got part way.
Yeah, there was a Dutch researcher came to see us at DEF CON and they got so a little bit further than you, but not quite where we got to. But yeah, so clearly people were realising. But this car's been on the market for 3 years. I'm amazed that nobody else had a look at it and thought, wow, that's nuts. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Well, there you go. So I don't know of any other vehicle that uses Wi-Fi for the mobile app like this. If anyone does find one, please shout. I'd love to have a look at it. I genuinely think they'd used Wi-Fi just to do the whole thing on the cheap. So setting up, a GSM module to do over-the-air comms. So you're thinking of a SIM card. You're thinking of some costings in from airtime providers. You've got an API to write. You've then got to host it. It's just much more complicated and costly. But you can do it on the cheap and make a real hash job of it by doing it this way. Get in. Okay.
The SSID you could change, but PSK you couldn't.
Yeah.
That's still the case.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling the PSK is derived from the MAC address, which is what I've been concentrating on because the ROM is built, basically the firmware for the device is built directly into the APK, so I've extracted that and I'm going through IDA trying to disassemble it. So it's simple ARM code, it's relatively easy to disassemble. So I've been going through there to see whether I can actually work out the PSK and where it gets it from, which that would be a story if I could manage that.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, like you say, finding the time to do it. Question at the back there.
You haven't mentioned it, or maybe I haven't missed it. Can you start the car?
So you can code a new key if you've got the right module to plug into the onboard diagnostics port. You can code a new key, so yes, you can then start the car. You can't start the car from the mobile app, though.
No. So you couldn't actually, could you recode a key from the data that you got from the mobile app?
Not from the mobile app, no.
Right.
Yeah. So there isn't the functionality to start the vehicle. I mean, some vehicles, the remote start to heat it up, but because you've got battery power from the onboard batteries, you don't need that in order to heat the vehicle. So there was no function there for it, unfortunately. Great. Any more questions?
Yeah, question on push-shared key again, because you mentioned that it's stored in plain text in the app.
Yeah.
But why does the app need the key? Because it connects to Wi-Fi already, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of...
Yeah, apps save more things than they need to save.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what it does, it actually controls your Android wireless, so it requires permissions to actually change your network on it. So, so basically, you go into the app and then you'll enter the key, and the app will change it for you. Hey, but that's how it's a bit silly, but that's how it does it.
Yeah. It's just it's not a well-written app by any stretch.
No, it's quite flaky. A lot of the restrictions as well, like the app won't allow you to turn your lights on if the car's open. You send the raw packets, that restriction's gone. So the app just has a little thing saying if the car's unlocked, don't allow you to send this packet. But
Which,
you can actually
and it's all done client side, which is crazy.
Business logic in the app.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
pretty much.
They're just making the classic assumption that you're only going to try and interface with the car through the app. Why would we do that? Use it as intended. Hey, cool. All right, we'll move on. Oh, question at the back.
Did you just get lucky when you
bought the car and it happened to be one that...
There is a story about that. When I did the original disclosure, I talked through actually, a friend of mine had one, and I was in the car park at my kid's school and noticed an unusual SSID. And he was the only other car in the car park. We were there late. And I said, "What's this?" And he said, "That's my car." Really? So we did the initial piece of research on his vehicle, but then when we got to the point of sending traffic to it, we thought it's probably a bad idea if we accidentally brick someone else's car. So then we went and bought our own so we could brick mine instead. I know, yeah, bit of a stupid thing. Yeah, that's definitely the most we've ever spent on a research project. I'll give you that. Cool.
Did Mitsubishi lawyers contact you? Because we had previously when researchers complained about vendors getting lawyers involved when you say you're going to go public.
Yeah, so we have had nothing legal from Mitsubishi. We went down, they invited us in to see them. As soon as the BBC made contact with them to validate the story, I think they then realised they'd made a major hack. But of course, the BBC now had the story, so we're going to run with it, whatever. They invited us down, we're actually really good, and we gave them a lot of advice and suggestions and things they could do. And I think, you know, I'd rather that would have happened pre-disclosure, but they just weren't listening, so we had no choice. Yeah, there was been no legal issues that I'm aware of, obviously, touch wood, lots of wood. But we're talking 4 months back now, so, you know, heard nothing. I think it was a question just here.
Just a pragmatic one. I mean, I guess you can't start the car, you can't steal it, right? So, what are the realistic pragmatic steps to actually go and steal the car? How much is going into the time yet?
So the key coding device, I last looked, it's about 400 quid, I think. It's actually relatively cheap. Andy's probably a man on that one. But yeah, the key coding kit isn't expensive, but getting hold of the keys is going to be more troublesome. But yeah, so you can steal it. It's just another couple of steps and it's a bit more kit.
But the ODB2 port, which you need to use to get to it, is right inside underneath the drivers, and,
Yeah.
and it's fully accessible. It's pretty much on every modern car you can get to
OBD.
That's one.
Yeah.
You can get to it relatively
Yeah.
easy because it has to be within a certain distance from the driver.
Yep. Cool. All right. Cool. We'll move on a bit, guys. So I don't know if you saw, we talked at DEF CON about, you probably all saw our lovely thermostat with a bit of ransomware on it. And where this came from, I went to a talk at CrestCon actually, and there was a talk about IoT ransomware. And I was quite expecting it to be very technical involved, and it turned out it was quite theoretical, and there was no real proof of concept. So we've been having a look around and looking at various different stats to see if actually we could do it for real, to really prove the point, to see if it actually was possible, to see if there was a functional enough thermostat out there that we could actually get some decent malware running on. And I think during that research time, we actually discovered that there's a huge amount of stuff out there, some much more functional than others, and really the key to it is choosing the device that you think is going to be most likely to be vulnerable. We had to do this talk pre-disclosure in Vegas, so we obfuscated and redacted everything. These are now disclosed, although I have still redacted the vendor names from these because, actually in fairness, the guys whose one we put ransomware on were actually really good. It was a really unusual IoT disclosure process. They were like, yeah, thanks guys, that's cool. Can you give us about 4 weeks to fix it and we'll do some new firmware? Cool, get in. Unlike every other IoT vendor. I think one of the crazy things to do, we start seeing with IoT is people buy stuff. And I think a great example of this was Nest acquired Resolve and then terminated it. So everyone who bought stuff, spent money on it, said, nah, it doesn't work anymore. Sorry. Interesting as well, reading the T's and C's. It's not that many T's and C's with IT devices actually say, don't reverse engineer this. Okay, cool, excellent. That's how all this good fun, isn't it? And there's one, I've actually got it with me. This is the first one we had a go at. I've actually got in my bag of skag. Where is it? So this is the first one we looked at. This was quite interesting because this is the one we talked about at InfoSec, and it's got the JTAG ports enabled in live production devices. Why the hell would you do that? Surely, one of the things you do in production kit is you disable all non-essential I/O. Just get rid of it. It's got a Wi-Fi thing. It's a nice colour screen. It's no OS, nice and easy. It's quite custom. It's actually quite a nice bit of kit. I would recommend this one when I can tell you what brand it is. We couldn't find a remote code execution, but to kind of prove a point, we messed around with it and discovered, yeah, you can actually change the splash screen and tell someone that, hey, we locked your thermostat out. That was really a very basic proof of concept. It wasn't fully functional. Okay, it proved the point, but it wasn't functional ransomware. It didn't really do it. So we had to try someone else. And that's this one. Dave, have you got one with you?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah. Now, there is a reason why I had this exciting looking bit of electronics here, and I assure you this is totally not electrical safe. Okay. So it's, I don't know whether any of you have ever looked around with thermostats or anything to do with heating on general things. They generally tend to be low voltage so that you don't need an electrician in to change them. Hence why I've got my DC power supply. So I'm actually going to boot this up. Here's the thermostat, and I will be booting this up now.
Not the boot screen.
Things. Oh, no, I'm still alive. That's good.
Not the boot screen.
Yeah.
Cool. It works.
So that's just going to boot, because I'm going to need that in a bit.
Yeah, so if you're looking around for stuff that you think you're going to be able to get code execution on, I'd go for something as functional as possible. And a good clue to that is just seeing how good the screens are, how good are the displays. Is it running some sort of Linux-based OS? Because if you are, you're going to have lots of functionality. And that's where we got a bit lucky with this one. If you're going to do some research, one of the first things to do, frankly, guys, is don't even bother getting your screwdriver out. Just look at the FCC website. Everything's there. They've got photographs. Everything's needed, the boards, the chipsets, everything's on the FCC website. Just go and do a search and you'll find everything you want to do. You don't even need to start breaking things, removing seals. It's all there. It tells you exactly what to look for. It's all there. We took one apart. In fact, we're taking lots apart now. Actually, might have bricked a couple of them, but that's another story. Nice and functional. Actually quite nicely designed and built. Quite like that. Lots of stuff to play with there. Stuff on there. Now it starts to get interesting. Dave?
So essentially, it's a Linux-based IoT device. So you've got everything built in. You can get in through U-boot. You've got BusyBox. You've got Ash. It makes it a bit harder to shell, but it's still there. It's not quite as easy as Bash. By default, there's nothing actually open. There is a HTTP API, but it's a bit pants. And it's a cloud service for remote connectivity. So basically, it connects to a PC application, which uses through the web interface, which uses Air. Now, anybody actually used Air before? Air is basically the desktop equivalent of Flash, and we all know how secure Flash is. So everything that it writes can be used through the SD card that we have there, and then you then go up into the actual device itself.
Yeah, the idea is that you use the Air app because it's much easier to maybe program a schedule than it is by trying to do it using the on-display stuff. Is it not working?
The demo gods are cursing me today.
Nice. Excellent, okay.
Let me just reboot it.
So that looked like a really interesting way to go. It's just easier to program it this way, but they really didn't think too much about it. And the slightly scary part is that the firmware is in the Air app. Get in. Okay, so that's going to make life nice and easy. It means we don't have to mess around. You can pull the binaries, bin walk it. That's it. Job done. Okay, so we've got the file system, which just make life so easy. Everything we need is on there. It was one great big binary, which is unusual, fair enough, running as root, unsurprisingly. Dave?
Essentially, it's the old thing, don't run things as root. So it basically loads files directly from it. You can read what it says on the screen there.
Yeah, sure. Run it through JS Beautify and you start to get much easier stuff to read. Lots of commands that execute, running as root, and there was no validation. That particular one, you see the execute command line, no validation, so you can inject commands. Joy, we're in, it's all right. Actually, when we were doing this, I haven't screenshotted this, but going further through, you started finding all sorts of other random stuff in there. Someone coded some stuff saying, if SSL failed, that was the shit SSL command. Okay, wow, he didn't expect his code to be read by somebody else. Yeah, the challenging bit was actually getting root. So just put ping everywhere to see if we could get any sort of commands out, and boom.
What you're seeing here is basically the SD card to update the screensaver.
Ah.
So there's a screensaver where you can upload it to the gallery, so you can have like screensaver showing pictures of your kids or your dogs or whatever you need, as if you really need a screensaver on.
Now, the first one we found we can inject on was the name of the boot image. So when it shows you the pretty screen, you can inject on that one. We reckon there are loads of other injection points, but we couldn't be bothered to find them because we found the one we wanted. It was all just fine. You want to get a shell, so netcat, cross-compile it so it runs nice and easily. And then, once you don't have much space to run stuff, did that, and it got netcat, and we were there. Had a shell, and it was all working. Dave?
So yeah, it's pretty much get a shell, tell it in. You're in there as root, and that's it. Once you're in there, you can persist your thing. Unfortunately, the actual stat here, that hack, what did have the hack on, but then I cocked it up. So just in readiness, so we actually have a screenshot here of what it should be saying. So this is the hacked screen. This is actually on the screensaver as a sort of way of fixing it. Because, well, don't try and do these things live and then accidentally nearly brick your device.
So the way we constructed the malware was quite simple. So it's got a lock pin. So to keep the kids out and stop people messing around with this, there's a 4-digit pin that locks it. So what we did was just change that lock pin remotely every 30 seconds, so the user's never going to be able to get back into it, and throw up a comedy image saying we've locked your thermostat. Uses an IRC botnet, old school, it works, and off you go. And that is ransomware running on our thermostat. It's local. You attack it over the SD card. It's not remote code execution. I don't think we would have disclosed this if it had been remote. Yeah, you've got to attack it. You've got a user to try and install it for you, or you maybe compromise their device, compromise the supply chain, or try and resell these in third parties. Yeah. There's also some additional functionality on that. There's a commercial version of this stat, and all the functionality is local. You can upgrade this to full commercial functionality locally, so you don't need to do anything to it, which is nuts. And there you go, we're all in. That was it. What would have made this hard for us? First of all, firmware really should have been encrypted, so we couldn't mess around with it. The firmware's not signed, so really, come on guys, this is 2016, sign your firmware. Basic principles. Oh, come on, validate, but we're still finding it in live production devices. And yeah, people say, yeah, it's only a thermostat, but that's not the point. The point of this was about the fact that you can do this on functional IoT devices. It could have been in anything. We did it this way because it's funny, no other reason. But it was so straightforward to resolve that. We've disclosed all this to the vendor. They're fixing it right now. I'll be interested to see how long it takes them to actually get some code out. There we go. That was thermostat ransomware. Any questions? Blimey, cool.
Only came here for the car.
Yeah, that's our blog. If anyone's interested in that, it's all blogged up on there. As soon as we can, as soon as we've been... Yeah.
Have you contacted any of the manufacturers and asked them if they've actually proactively done any testing of their stuff? I know I might be living in a dream world, but I looked at getting a smart thermostat. Sent a question to the vendor, and basically they pointed me to like an electronic safety testing website. I said, yes, we have these tested, it's all fine. So that's what I was looking for, but just with you, so disclosing to Mitsubishi on the earlier talk, just wondering if you, just as a point of interest.
I mean, as I'm sure you guys know, we work on lots of other IoT shite as well. I brought my Wi-Fi kettle along. I brought the swearing doll along. And
Don't get that.
no, I'm not going to get that out. There's also some other things in my... there's also this Ring doorbell. And I think it's quite interesting, actually, see those IoT vendors are actually all over it. So Ring are actually quite good. I don't think everyone can get security right first time every time, but they responded within a couple of hours of us notifying them. And they fixed it within 2 weeks and deployed a firmware to the installed base over there, which is brilliant, fantastic, well done, Ring, good job. Although somebody's since found another vulnerability that was disclosed at DEF CON. My experience of contacting IoT vendors, and I don't know, it's probably remarkably similar to the rest of you who've done IoT work, is they just don't have a bloody clue. You ring them up and you try and get hold of somebody to have a sensible conversation with, and you discover that actually it's two guys in an office in Carshalton in Surrey, and everything is subbed out. All they do is take the product to market. It's probably produced in the Far East somewhere. They booked the production slot 9 months ago, and even if they did want to engage and talk to you and resolve it, they can't stop production, so they're going to ship it anyway, irrespective. And if, like the kettle, there's no way to over-the-air update it, what do? What choice do they now have? Security researcher comes along and says, your product's got a problem. They go, we can't fix it. The choice is, carry on or go bust. What do? You know, for IoT manufacturers, it's a difficult game. So to answer your question, is my experience is the majority of IoT manufacturers don't have a Scooby-Doo about security. Broadly, and this is a really broad way of looking at it, is that I think the brand names that are getting a lot of attention, so for example, Nest and Hive have had a lot of attention. They had fails in the beginning, but I think they're broadly getting better. My personal experience, it's the Me Too's. So someone's seen, you know, Nest has created a brand in smart IoT gear. It's the knockoffs where the real problems are, because they're coming in at a much lower price point with similar functionality, but have completely forgotten security. So, you know, that's how you find bugs in these stats. There we go. Any more questions?
On that thermostat, if you need to physically change an SD card, why is that different to like a Windows laptop that you can stick a CD in and run Linux? What's the vulnerability?
The big difference with that one is you can actually do that from boot. So yeah, you need to actually unlock the Windows device to actually run the SD card from that.
Yeah,
so it's not the perfect way of doing the ransomware. It would have been a lot nicer to actually infect over the air.
Yeah.
But you can necessarily prime it in advance if you want, or just go around somebody's house.
Yeah, it's not the perfect, but it proves the point, I guess. We have got another one that Dave's got at the moment, which we think we can get remote code execution on, but we haven't finished the work on that one yet.
Yeah, that one uses mains power, so I'm only working with that in my garage where there's like 2 RCDs between me and the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife would seriously kill me if I blew the electrics.
Yeah. So keep an eye. So if we do succeed, we'll disclose to the vendor. Hopefully they'll listen, and then see how we get on.
And it would quick. Yeah.
Some of the thermostats, the actual thermostat itself is pretty dull. Might have Wi-Fi capability, but there's a hub, which is a separate piece of kit. Is that something you've looked at? Have you looked at any of that?
So there's a really interesting one, actually. So that amazing security vendor, VTech, do a home IoT hub. They're not shipping it in the UK yet, which is a real shame because I want to get my hands on one of those. I mean, VTech, it's bound to be bulletproof, right? Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's another vector, another way in. Yeah, if you're interested in this stuff, just jump on Amazon and spend a few quid just buying some likely looking gear and just have a play. You know, get out JTAG, have a go, see if you can get the firmware, and go and own some devices. Any more questions there, guys? One at the back.
Are there any Android TVs?
Well, funny enough, we've got 2.
Yeah, we've got 2 of them. I don't know whether you saw the BBC article that I actually was on TV and everybody texted me to say, "You're on TV."
Might be on here.
It was basically where we did an app that listened into you and then passed it over to my web server in the background and actually told me what you were saying. That works on the Android TVs.
Yeah.
So we actually had a demo set up for that for InfoSec, but
it didn't work.
It was too noisy, so we couldn't actually trap anything. But yeah, Android TVs they are Android at the background. It's very easy to actually install apps on them.
Yeah, it's we all spent some time in DEF CON looking at another smart Samsung fridge. That's really interesting, but unfortunately it was running Tizen, which I just don't know enough about. Last year it was much easier because it was running straight Android. Good. Any other questions? Cool. Thanks, guys.